So hey everybody, I'm glad you could join us tonight for tonight's workout. It's just going to get harder every day, so I'm glad that you are here from the beginning. But tonight I wanted to give you April's Horse Challenge. And for the month of April, if you complete it with your horse, you're going to be entered into this Mastery Manual number 6. It's called Natural Leadership. And there's a ton of information in here about using love, language, and leadership. So for April's challenge, you're going to need possibly your horseman's stick and string, or you can use a flag, or if you don't need it, you don't have to have it. And you're going to need a 22-foot line. So you can either use the Featherlight line or the standard 22-foot line. Each line has its bonuses and perks. So like for example, if your horse already knows what we're going to be doing, and they're pretty soft on your hands, then I would go to the Featherlight line. If the horse is still kind of heavy on your hands and sometimes pulls, then I would use the standard rope because you won't get rope burns. These will give you rope burns. So let's see. So there's going to be 4 parts to this challenge. The first one you need to be able to complete is maintain gait. So if you decide to do it at the trot, you need to do maintain gait for 20 laps. If you do it at the canter, you need to do maintain gait for 10 laps, all right? And that's both directions. So not only are we working on your physical fitness and core strength, but we're also working on the horses. That's why I don't want you to wait till last minute to send this homework in. Gradually build up the amount of time where your horse can do longer and longer laps on the circle, and that they understand maintain gait, maintain direction, and look where they're going. Now, the next part of the challenge is to incorporate that spiral. So you're going to spiral in as close as the horse can get to you while maintaining gait, and then spiral back out. So throughout the rest of the month, I'm still going to be sending you little ideas and clips with different horses of things that might show up with your horse to kind of give you some ideas of how you can progress. And of course, if you have any questions during our monthly meetings, that's the time to ask. The third thing that we're going to add in is a jump. So can your horse be maintaining the circle and go over a jump? So a barrel, a culvert, a cross rail, doesn't matter what it is, something where they have to be elevated. Something, so not a tarp or nothing on the ground like flat, but something where they have to jump while they're maintaining gait. Then the fourth thing is a change of direction, all right? So if you're doing this at the canter, then your change of direction will be a flying lead change. If you're doing it at a trot, we should see a nice even rhythm throughout the change of direction. So for me, I play on the ground so that it makes sense for when I get in the saddle, especially with Gus. And there's things. So his horsenality is mostly that left brain extrovert, right? So he's a thinker, and he likes to move his feet, and he's playful. So cantering is really easy for him. Anything slower is pretty boring. However, now that we have a back cinch on our saddle, he can be a little bit more expressive. So by doing those changes of directions, more so at the canter, it puts a lot of, so when he does a change of direction, he compresses, and then he needs to get out of there. So when he compresses, he expands his ribs and his whole midsection, and it puts a lot of pressure on that back cinch. And so if he's gonna buck, that's usually when it happens. So we want to teach you these skills so that when you go out on your horse, you can kind of push some buttons on the ground and see, what is my horse gonna do if I do this or this? Or if you've never cantered your horse under saddle, canter them on the ground with the saddle on. Prepare them as much as you can so that when you get on their back, it'll be a breeze. Okay, so I wanted to show you this from scratch. Everything that we've talked about, I've done with Gus before, so I'm not teaching him any of this, but I might be reinforcing what we're doing. So there's teaching phase, there's a controlling phase, there's a reinforcing phase, and then there's a refinement phase. So today we're kind of probably going to be maybe some controlling, but more than likely it'll be in a reinforcing phase. So did you forget how to do this? You should be doing this. And I love Linda Pirelli's new saying of not that, this. It's such a really powerful thing to think about. Okay, so I threw the saddle on him. I lightly cinched it, I'm gonna cinch it up again, and then we're gonna go out. And I'm gonna go through all 4 things that I showed you, and this is what I would do with him regardless. This is our normal preparing to ride, especially for him. If you had a more introverted horse, then you're gonna start out slower and then build, and then once your horse got some motivation or more trusting if it was over the jump, that's when I'd quit. So for him, because he's more playful, I'm gonna quit when he's obedient, and then we'll go on to something else. All right, so because I know at those changes of direction at the canter, he can get still a little excited. So I've had plenty of rope burns, I don't need another one. So I'm gonna go to this heavier rope. Back him up a little bit. How's our porcupine game? Is he giving the steady pressure? So every little thing I'm checking out. All right. When I go to, let me turn here. Here's another little thing you can think about. That's good there. When you go to cinch up your horse, when you go to pull up on the girth, press down on their withers at the same time. I'm going to press down on the withers and lift up on the girth. Head down. Good. So see him kind of kicking out in the back? That's his I'm a little uncomfortable deal. That's what he does when he starts to be uncomfortable. He lifts up his back foot. Every horse will have a little sign of what happens before what happens happens. Now, for me with that back cinch, I like to have it pretty snug. Not quite as snug as the front cinch, but I have a back cinch, so I'm going to actually use it. A lot of times you'll see back cinches that are really hanging low. You might as well just take them off if they're going to be that low. And they can be quite dangerous because if you go out in the woods, a stick could get stuck up in there. And also, if your horse gets kicking at flies at its belly, it can get his back leg caught in that back cinch. So if you use a back cinch, I would suggest having it pretty snug, at least when you start, because when you ride, it will loosen up. But if it's loose to begin with, it'll be really loose when you're, once you've got riding a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna head out here. And the whole time, I'm gonna be thinking about, does my horse know the goal? So he just executed it before I was ready. And Martin Black talks about that. He says, I don't mind anticipation, right? The horse knows the goal. But it's controlled anticipation that we're looking for. So I love that saying, controlled anticipation. But that's great that he knows the goal. All right, now we're looking two while we're talking. Good. Down back of one. Look at my phases. Okay, lead them out to the side. All right. So, I'm going to warm up at the trot. Now this is maintain gait, maintain direction, and look where you're going, right? So right now he's kind of looking at the door. So now I might start the And you'll notice the closer he gets, the more of a good banana he has to have in his body. So you're going to ask your horse to go. That's better. As soon as he softens up, I'm just going to turn with him, put some energy at the shoulder, and push him back out. That was a nice little breathe out. Good. So I feel like his muscles are pretty warmed up. Now I'm going to ask him up into the canter. So I'm going to have a little feel. I'm going to turn with him. And if he didn't go, then I would use my stick. So if you're doing your laps, you can start counting now. I want to make sure he's on the correct lead. That's really good blown out. The more laps you do, your horse will get their weight on their hindquarters and balance themselves better. So because he broke gait, then you have to start over from 1. So he needs to do 20 uninterrupted laps. So because we're still warming up, I'm not going to make it a big deal. So now we're going to do our spiral. So I'm going to change my life. I'm going to be more kind of up in my body, more back in my body, kind of an inviting feeling. So I'm going to bring him in. We'll just see how close he can get. So that was about it. So then I say, okay, I won't bring you in as close. I want him to put a little bit more effort in there. As soon as I feel like he's strong and he's softer on my hands, then I'll reward that. And he can go back out on the circle. Okay, now we're going to do a change of direction. That's really, this spiral is so good for relaxing your horses. So, for a change of direction, I'm going to wait till it gets to my shoulder. I'm going to back up, point, beautiful lead change. And now he gets to maintain gait going this direction. One thing you want to be aware of when you're doing your circling game is that you keep your rope at the horse's head or behind. So don't lead your horse around the circle. You'll see that a lot. So he's already offering that good bend. So I'll say that's a nice idea. So I'll take it. Let him in, that's pretty cool. Now turn, okay, go back out. Okay, so now I'm going to line him up for the jump and just see what happens. Nice looking shoe. So very casually, do my traveling circling game. Pretty good. Keep maintaining gait. We're maintaining gait. He missed it, no big deal. I wasn't prepared. I'm going to line him up a little better. Yeah, that was a good one. Very good. Excellent. So he did pretty good, right? So, but I didn't really push any buttons. Like the flying lead change was pretty smooth. So now I'm going to push some buttons and see what I get. He's actually in a pretty good mood. Two. Hello. Yeah. This was something that Tom Curtin had talked to me about. So say if we're standing here, and he goes to look out the window, the door. Make it a game, especially with this horse analogy. Okay, now I'm going to push some buttons and see what happens. Oh, stay flat. Stay flat, stay flat. And you have to go backwards. Good. Get that knee foot to go out. I need that shoulder to go out and around. Now let's see what happens if I push some buttons. So I need a snappier depart. See what happens? He's crossfire in the back. Partly because I put pressure on his hindquarters. So I'm going to make it a little harder for him. So we're going to use that spiral. There. That was his idea to change. Now we'll go back out. What happens if I run with him? So bring up your horse's emotions. Can you get them to gallop? I'm going to ask her change of direction. I'm going to back up. There, very good. Very nice. I'm going to head over to the jump. That's it. He's counter cantering. Still counter cantering. So I'm going to, he changed in the front but not the back. I'm going to do the spiral. I'd like him to maintain gait. Can't throw to a trot, but he got the correct lead. Send him back out. Line up for that jump. Oh, he got a flying lead change, but the wrong way. Now he's got the lead in the front, but not the back. No big deal. We'll go right back to the spiral. There we go. Got the spiral. Now he finds some comfort. Missed the jump, but he stayed on the correct lead. Missed the jump, but he stayed on the correct lead. There! Oh, okay, good point. So he jumped the jump, which was great, but he got on the wrong lead. There we go. Very good. So that last time, he went over the jump and he stayed on the correct lead. The other times when he jumped the jump, he wasn't thinking about me. He was thinking about going out the gate. And that's why his hindquarters goes that direction. So, hey, stay in class here. Stay in class. So again, once you've got your horse with some energy up, go back to your friendly game. Good. But don't be afraid to bring up their emotions. Usually what happens is their emotions come up on the trail or when they get excited, and they haven't learned on their own to bring their emotions down. So push some buttons on the ground, and then when you get in the saddle, you don't have to push those buttons, but more than likely, if you do accidentally push those buttons, you're going to be okay. So again, that's why I do the groundwork so that, or playing on the ground, so that it makes sense for when I get in the saddle. And a lot of times, that's what he needs. Okay, so we started soft, we got the engine revved up, and now we're going to go back to some softer circles. Get that back up because I don't want to quit with his adrenaline up. You can see his head's a little tight. There we go. When Gus first came here, he was like a maniac at the canter. He always had his head tied down, like his previous owners always tied his head down. And he never learned how to balance himself. He always relied on the rider or the reins or something. And so in this program, we say, you figure it out. I don't want to have to hold you up. You do it. It's still kind of heavy there. I'm just going to wait until he softens on my hand. And this is something you just have to feel. I'd like his nose to come down a little bit. Better. Maybe that's too small a circle, no big deal. Let's try it a little bit farther out. Now, if your horse is still, oh, there it goes. Softness. Now let him have the rope back. And I don't want him to pull it out of my hands. I want to feed it out to him. Okay. Now he's got to do maintain gait. Now again, I would not start here. We play with this a lot. And he's an extroverted horse, so going fast isn't that big of a deal. Going forward. So this is the rope thing I wanted to talk to you about. When you have your lead rope, keep your rope behind his nose, okay, as he's traveling. So a lot of times what happens is you'll have your hand out here ahead of the horse. So you're gonna you're trying to lead the horse around the circle. You don't want to do that. Very good. Very good. So I didn't lean down and invite him in. I said very good, and he knows what that means. And that's okay. I don't want to make him feel wrong. That he maintained gait really well. That was good. All right, well, I hope that gives you some ideas of what you can do and what you guys can start playing with. And again, I'm going to start sending video clips after our nightly workout of little bits and pieces that you guys can start to put this together. But those of you that have been playing with this for a while, and I know some of you have passed Glenn Stewart stage 3, which all of this has, except for the spiraling, has been part of Glenn stage 3. But now I just want you to go for more laps and maintain gait